you guys follow me on Facebook, you will have already seen a little bit of this story. I've always liked being very organized, and I know some of my detractors will say, well, that, you're very controlling. And I am. I'm very controlling of my environment. I like the people around me to be unpredictable in a creative and spontaneous way. It's what stops me from getting bored. But I like the structure of my day to be very as controlled as possible, so that my expectations are very clear, and for myself and for the people around me. So there's in our household, there's a lot of lists and writing things down. We joke in a positive way about everything is under contract. And it's just because I think that misunderstandings can happen, and miscommunications can happen all too easily when things aren't actually written down. But also I think it's because of something that I never knew what the word was, which is this idea of, it's called gaslighting. At least that's what folks have come to call this. And this is when someone recounts a situation where the two of you were, and they recount it completely differently than the way you remember it. And they're just, well, you're not remembering it right. And they try to tell you how things went. Now, the truth of the matter is, we all experience life in our own way. I can go, and I always like to tie this back to film and books. I can go and I can see a film and I can honestly be like, this was visually stunning, the acting was superb, the story was so rich and multi-layered, and someone else could be like, this was a complete hack job. It was ridiculous. Neither of us are actually right or wrong. Art is subjective. And people say, well, that's ridiculous. Some films are just bad, there's just films that are just garbage. And I'm like, really? Because I've heard people say Blair Witch Project is garbage, but clearly hundreds of thousands of others disagree. So I always say, I don't care how much I've disliked a film, or I've thought, oh my gosh, the camera work is this and the story is this. I don't care. Art is subjective. Memory is also subjective. If I feel that spending time with someone has reminded me very much of spending time with someone else, if that's how my brain registers this new person and this person from the past, then I am correct. But at the same time, someone can say, oh no, I don't see that at all. And for them, that is correct. So you see, memory in some ways is an art form. So how this ties into the story on Facebook. So I am always looking for good to-do apps, like something on my phone that I can organize and keep track of my day. You guys probably know I came to cell phones, but especially smartphones very late in the game. I really resisted having one for the longest time. I didn't really want another electronic device, because I worked on my computer all day. And I had taught myself at a very early age, one of the first laptops that was released commercially, my entire extended family, for my 16th birthday, that was in 1989, pooled their money and bought me one. It was a Toshiba, and you would boot it with a floppy disk and the gray and white screen. But that changed my life. And no one else in my entire extended family at that time had a computer. And I'm not just talking about a laptop. I'm talking about any computer. No one had one. Being able to type my own novels was a game changer for me. It literally made my career as a writer possible. Because up until that point, so by the time I was 16, I had 4 novel-length works, all of which were written in longhand, and all of which my parents then paid a typist to type. And they were typed, not even put on disc at that point. So between the time that I was 16 and when I was 17 and I graduated from high school, I added another dozen novels to that. And it's not because I type fast. As a matter of fact, if anyone's ever seen me at a computer, I don't even type like a regular person. I have like a 6-finger type. But it wasn't that I was typing fast, it was that I could type as opposed to having to handwrite everything and then having us to pay someone to transcribe it. And when I handwrite, I would handwrite I print very, very tiny, and I liked to write my books in sketchbooks, so they were unlined paper. And I should share that in a vlog someday if you guys are interested in seeing that. I can take pictures of some of those early books that might be, I don't know, tell me if you guys want to see that. But, so anyway. So, I came to cell phones very late, and I'm always looking for a way to justify having a cell phone. Now, for work, that's pretty easy, especially since I don't have a personal phone or a personal line. My cell phone that you guys always see me with is the Blue Forge phone. I literally film on it. I do all of my Facebook messages on it, all of my Gmail, all of that is done on the phone. So I wanted to be able to find a good to-do app, and I never could find one that I liked. And then there was some little pop-up ad or something like this. It was just a completely random thing that talked to me about, since you like these kinds of things, you're gonna like this app called Helvetica. And it's like a little game, but it's also a really surprisingly robust to-do app. So not only does it have daily to-dos that you can edit really fast and easily, but it also has things that you do every single day that you don't want to forget, which, as you guys know, there are certain things that have to be done 7 days a week, 365 days a year to keep the business running. And then there's another category for like habits, things that are good for me, like self-care and health habits that are good for me to do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. I can keep track of everything there. And it's all tied into this really cute, like 8-bit Dungeons and Dragons type formula. But really what it is this incredibly robust to-do app. So I really fell in love with that. And it has a kind of a background community that runs, that's divided into likes, like people that are musicians or people that are mathematicians or whatever it is. And so I posted in one of these little guilds, they're called, about music. And I said, I used to compose music all the time. Like you could not, a day, a week at the most would not go by that I wasn't locking myself in a quiet room, closing myself in a quiet room somewhere, or sometimes just sitting in the middle of the hallway with, the kids playing and the world going on around and composing something new on the harp. And I woke up the other day and realized, wow, I haven't done that in 5 years, more than 5 years. The only music I've composed is for work. So I posted in this little guild and I said, what do you guys do to inspire yourselves and also to justify taking the time to compose new music? And a complete stranger posted back almost immediately and was like, well, Jennifer, what were you doing differently back then? What was going on in your life 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you were composing constantly? And that really took me for a minute, because I was like, wow, wait, was it 5 years? Has it been 10 years? And I went back and I'm looking at dates on albums that I've released of harp music, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been just shy of 10 years. And that's when it hit me. The last time I was composing every day, the last time that making a new song would be in the back of my mind all day, all through work, so I could just get that time, that 30 minutes, and I would just do it live. It would just pour out of me, and it would be my everything in that moment. It was when I was courting Brienne. And I know I've touched on this. I don't know, have I touched on this in some of the Somewhere Today vlogs? Sometimes I vlog for you guys for this series here, just the really super personal stuff, and I delete them and I never post them. I used to do that a little bit when I was doing the company vlog in 2017, the daily company vlog in 2017. I would veer into the personal, and then I would just like store those away on a hard drive and be like, no, those aren't really important, but I didn't delete them. But when I get too personal with you guys here for Somewhere Today, I delete them. There was one that I recorded for you guys. I think it was the second one. It would have been my second one in this series that I deleted. It was pouring down rain, and I was sitting in my car, and it was when the Me Too movement was sweeping social media. And I talked about my feelings, and I proposed the hashtag #YouToo, because I had been really affected by folks that were chiming in with Me Too and saying, you know, hey, actually none of this has ever happened to me, but I really support everyone that, you know, is doing this tag. And after I ran into this, because I was friended to someone who was friended to someone, it was that kind of thing. And the person who was posting this was someone that not only did I know firsthand had been a victim of abuse, but someone who had been a victim of abuse by someone who went on to abuse 3 other people that I knew of, and then a 4th person being myself. And when I had found that out in the moment, years, I'm talking like 30 years ago, I had thought to myself, if that first person had just said something, just anything. And when I saw her post, this was just, you know, a couple of months ago, when I saw her post a couple of months ago, I thought to myself, you're still silent. It's been more than 3 decades, and you're still silent. And on that blog that I deleted, I started rehashing all of the people that I know have been silent in their lives. And when I came out when I was 18 or 19 years old and did a piece with MTV, and I know I've touched on this a little bit in a vlog, some of these folks came forward to me then privately and were like, Me Too, back before Me Too was a thing. And it was supposed to be this like solidarity moment with them, but all I could think of in those moments were, what happened to me happened to you decades earlier and you said nothing, or years earlier and you said nothing, and you're coming forward now to me after it's happened to me from the same person. If you had spoken up. And that's why I've never regretted speaking out when I did. And even though I know that it will be hard for my kids who still do not grasp that entire part of the concept. I have tried to broach it with them one time because I was afraid they were going to find the MTV stuff before I had a chance to talk to them. And the concept of it was so alien to my children that they were like, you can't mean, that can't have, you don't. And part of me was joyful that that isn't in their worldview. And part of me also then knew this is not the time. They're not ready for me to broach these topics, because it was years ago. But anyway, I know I feel like I'm all over the place tonight, huh? But, so I had been courting Brienne when I was last composing regularly and felt passionately about my own original music for the sake of music. And it's because the situation that we were in, we could never speak freely to one another. And in every moment that we had, and sometimes we were living in the same house, you guys, before we were together, but before we were a couple at all. The circumstances had brought us to be living in the same house, and yet sometimes we would have 2 minutes, like no joke, 5 minutes, and even then we would feel like what we could say to each other was was limited and controlled. And so to me, I think my music was my way of being able to bridge that space between us. And also I would hear her later playing the recordings and I would feel like we were together, and it helped me get through that time. And then I thought about all of the incredible advice that I learned from watching my grandparents, my father's parents, and my mother's parents. Watching those two incredibly powerful, lifelong relationships is that you have to be able to listen. You have to say someone's name. These are things that I have talked about before, the advice I've passed on to the kids. You have to know that no one is perfect, including yourself. And you have to never stop wooing your significant other, and that goes both ways. I know, and I'm going to touch on this in a vlog later for this series, because actually Brienne has encouraged me to, but I know that a lot of people see Brienne and I, and they see me as the boy, the masculine one in our relationship. And first of all, I think we are really getting to a point, hopefully in American culture, where everyone can accept each other as they are and realize, no, there really isn't one of us who's the boy. That's not how it works. We're both women. We're both really proud to be women. But, it's kind of like the Forrest Gump, a woman is as a woman does. And there is a spectrum of femininity and a spectrum of masculinity, and we should all be okay with wherever people fall on that spectrum. So if we truly love each other and we are dedicated to a relationship, we continue to woo one another, and that's how it needs to be. And it needs to come from both sides, and it's a forever thing. Interestingly, and what I didn't share on Facebook, because I said, I think I'm going to start. I am. I said, this month I'm going to start making music again. I'm going to start making music for me, and I'm going to start making music for Brienne. The same music, right? For us. Because that's something that, if you think authors and filmmakers and game makers make little bits of money, musicians make even less. But the part that I didn't share on Facebook that kind of occurred to me later in the day after I'd made my post was, there's a good relationship, a healthy relationship takes time. Like anything worth doing, it's a time commitment. And you know what else is a time commitment? Our friendships. Now there's a meme that's very popular, and you guys know that I love talking about memes, those little pictures and sayings that go around social media and get shared and reshared and this kind of thing. And it's a true friend, something along these lines. A true friend is someone that even after you guys haven't spoken for a year, you could just reach out and go, hey, and they'll go, hey, and everything is okay, and you know that they love you and they're thinking about you. Now, I get the sentiment behind that. I totally get it. But I've always felt like I would rather have fewer friends and devote actual time to them every day in my life. To know that our lives are intertwined and we are literally on this journey together. Not each on parallel journeys, but that our paths literally cross and uncross even in the course of a day. And we keep kind of checking back. I once went on a camping trip with Brienne and some of her close friends. And Liz and Zach have a dog named Sadie. And she's an Australian shepherd dog. I think that's what it's called, an Aussie. And I've never been someone who felt comfortable with big dogs, but it's like there's something about her that I really loved. It was kind of like my sister Angela, she and her husband David had a big dog named Vita, who, like, I never felt like Vita was a big dog. Vita was just like fabulous. That's how I feel about Sadie. And in the grand scheme of things, neither of those dogs are like super large, but when we would be out walking on the beach, everyone together, Sadie would run ahead, and then she'd circle back around and like make eye contact, like check in with everyone, like touch her nose to your hand. And she was just like making sure that her little herd of people were all traveling together. And that's how I feel about, for me, what friendship is for me. For me, it's fine if someone reaches out to me that I haven't talked to in a year or more, and they're like, hey, that's cool that, you know, we commented on each other's thing this other day, and that was neat, that I'm thinking about you too, cool, awesome. And then we carry on with our lives. And that braid is kind of, it's far flung. For me to really call someone a true friend, I feel like I have to have this kind of constant interaction with them. I want to know what I can do to help. I want to know what they're thinking and feeling and creating and dreaming. People say, well, that sounds more like a relationship than a friendship. And I guess for me, that's true, is that the people that I actually care about, I see them as family more than as an extended network. I see those folks as partners, as business partners, co-workers, colleagues, fellow artisans, things like that. But a friend is something much closer to family. So I think that's what I wanted to add. So even if someone follows me on Facebook and has kind of seen my post, I had posted some pictures of harps that I built, because I build harps from scratch. And I was talking about that, but then I tied it into this whole, you know, wanting to make music again. And also the kindness of strangers. You know, that one stranger in that little Helvetica guild reaching out and just being like, hey, Jennifer, you know, think about it this way. And how cool and insightful that was. And I think the kind of lesson of the day that I pulled out of it for myself and that I shared with my community on Facebook was, you know, are you that person who posts something sweet and insightful on someone else's comment, on someone else's post? Or are you that person that is kind of the troll under the bridge, nipping at ankles as people try to carry on with their lives? And, you know, let's try to choose kindness instead of being kind of bitter and resentful of the people around us. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. So I hope that isn't too redundant. If you had already seen that post, I'm sure it's still up. It's on my page on Facebook if you want to see the harps. There's some steampunk harps and some Holly and the Ivy harps. And there might be more pictures of harps I have an old website that's still up from years and years ago, just jenniferdemarco.com. There might be some more pictures there. It's hopelessly outdated, but finding time to update that website when I've got 5 other Blue Forge websites to launch, not high on my priority list. Talk to you guys again soon. Bye.